coming up next. Stay tuned to learn more about the state of the art in blockchain and cryptocurrency technology. Reimagine 2020.
Hi, Alex Mashinsky. I'm a founder of Celsius Network. It's my 8th startup as a founder, so I did 7 other companies, and you can say really a innovator in the technology, internet, communication space, and really excited about what we're doing here.
Hi everyone, I'm Artur, and right now we have an incredibly exciting guest here. We have Alex Mashinsky from Celsius Network, but not only that, he has quite a few notches on his belt from his track record as an entrepreneur. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Alex.
Sure, thanks for having me. My background is, again, I'm an immigrant. I was born in the Ukraine. Grew up in Israel, so if you think of Ukraine as like communism, Israel is socialism, and for the last 33 years I've been in the United States mastering capitalism. So it feels like an experiment of testing all the different social systems out there. So that's my life to date.
So I understand. So as many people probably know, you've had quite an eventful or sort of full of achievements life. Could you, how did you sort of, what are your most important kind of learning points, or if we just sort of zoom out and try, if you were to sort of, to walk us through the sort of the most monumental points, and then sort of, let's say, as your career as an entrepreneur? Or...
So look, every one of us has to trailblaze their own path, and for a lot of people, it's very hard to find what they're good at, right? My belief is that each one of us is the best in the world at something, but most of us don't get to find what is that one thing that we're better than everybody else. And we get to do things that we're mediocre at just because we're not continuously exploring what we are best at. So I think in my case, I was lucky enough to find the few things that I'm horrible at many things, believe me. It's not like I'm the best in the world at everything. I just managed to find a few things that I do better than most people and focus all my efforts and energy there. And because of that, it was easy for me to achieve success, because I get to the finish line, or I get to the understanding faster than others. But when it comes to other parts of execution or follow up, or those are the things I'm not so good at. So I always assemble a great team that helps me with the things that are not necessarily my strongest skills. So the people who are watching this, I mean, the one of the most important thing that as a takeaway from this video is that you have to understand that, for example, this COVID, this Corona thing that everybody thinks is a horrible thing, is actually an opportunity as well, because the skill sets, the things that will be needed tomorrow are very, very different than what we needed in the last 50, maybe even 100 years, right? So what you thought of yourself as here's what I'm going to do in my life, this is what my life looks like, all of that doesn't matter. The question is right now, what in your skill set, in what you can do, you can take advantage of it or excel at that and change. You can change your entire life, right? Because again, what we need today is not what we needed yesterday. So it's a great opportunity to bring people, retrain people, and for a lot of people to find a new path, because at least 50% of the population is going to have to find a new job in the next 10 or 20 years.
So, so you mentioned that that you very humbly mentioned that you're only good at a few things. But when did you sort of when did you realize? How old were you, or what was this moment when you realized what you were good at?
It was a learning process. I think it was a process of kind of understanding yourself. I tried 2 universities. I flunked two universities. I was thrown out of high school. So being opinionated or thinking you have better answers sometimes is, you know, if you're not channeling it in the right way, it can also manifest itself in a troublemaker. Like people looking at me like, I think I was voted the least likely guy to succeed in my high school yearbook. So, so because I was not accepting the status quo, I was not accepting any of the things. I didn't listen to adults. I was totally, so it could have ended as a disaster too. It's not, it doesn't mean that, so there was definitely several forks in the road where if I took the wrong turn, it would have been a disaster. So, but one of the key decisions, you asked about that before, what were the key decisions? One of the key decisions was to come to the United States because the United States is a place where it doesn't matter what your background is or who your parents are or what school you went to. If you have a great idea, if you have a great concept, you will get the chance. You will get the chance to swing, and if you hit, you will hit it out of the park, right? But if you don't hit, it doesn't matter. You can come to the plate and swing again. I'm talking about baseball analogies in the United States. We can switch that to soccer. You get to, you know, you get to try it several times, right? And in Europe and other places around the world, that's not the way businesses run. So you get less of a chance, and you gotta stay in line. You have to pay your dues. You have to prove over 10 or 20 or 30 years what you have, and then you get to maybe lead a company or start something or whatever. So I managed to channel my ideas into new companies. I started 8 of them, and all of them were focused on how to kind of disrupt this or that industry. So I focused on the communication space, then I focused on the internet, then I focused on transportation, and now we're focused on finance, right? So these are all industries that, you know, if you ask someone, oh, you know, what are the chances of a 22-year-old who's a new immigrant who just showed up in a new country, who didn't go to school here, doesn't have a network, doesn't have a family. I was here all by myself in the United States to succeed in changing the entire infrastructure of the telecommunication network and switching everybody from using TDM voice communication to voice over IP, right? The chance is a fraction of 1%, right? So these things happen rarely, but they do happen much more often in the United States than they happen anywhere else in the world. And that's why the United States is the leader in the world in technology and innovation and other things.
So you were 22 years old when you founded your first company.
I was actually 16 when I started my first company. I was 22 when I came to the United States, yes.
Wow. And an entrepreneur 8 times over. And so, but now bringing to the present, can you tell us a bit about Celsius Network? And I understand there's a connection to the voice over IP kind of analogy there as well.
Yes. So Celsius Network is our attempt to really convince people that they should take not just care, but also they should take the responsibility for their financial future. And today, most of us think that the way you make money is you work, right? You take your time, you work in this or that company or this or that service, and you basically exchange your time for dollars or whatever your local currency is, right? And so most of us are either through our labor or our time are creating money. But the richest people in the world are not really working for a living, right? Their money is working for them. Their money makes money. And almost in no school, there's a class that says how to earn money or how to make money on money. I don't think anyone has attended this class, because these are like some of the best kept secrets in the world, right? If you know how to make money from thin air or how to make money on money, then you have a pretty good chance of ending up as the 1% or 1/10 of 1%. So I decided to take all these secrets, put them into almost like a network. That's why it's called Celsius Network, and basically deliver them in an automated way to any participant on the network. So and it's a really simple concept. Most of us use banks because when we make that money, when we convert our time to money, we then have to store it somewhere, right? So if we're high tech, then maybe we buy some Bitcoin or Ethereum and we store it as a digital asset. But most of us take that income and put it in a bank. And the bank is the one who collects the money and then makes money on money, right? And the banks have almost like this magical license to make money on money. And we have no idea what they do with our money. They pay us almost nothing for our money, but the banks make billions and billions of dollars in profit by just the fact that you give them your labor fees for free. You'll give them your money for free. They get to lend it to everybody out there. They collect all the interest and they pay themselves. They never give you anything back. So we said, what if we gave the depositor, the people who actually worked hard for the money, what if we gave them 80% of the proceeds, every 80% of what we made out of that money, right? So in 700 years of banking, since the idea of banking was invented in Italy back in the 14th century or whatever, no one has done that. It's shocking, right? You would think to yourself, wait a second, shouldn't the people who created the money in the first place through labor or innovation should be the one benefiting from the money? No, that's not how the world works. So that idea, that just that simple thing is something that when I started talking about it, people looked at me like, you're crazy. That's not how the world works. And besides, why would you want to give people so much back if they willingly are giving you money for free? Don't you just want to take their money for free and make as much money on the money? Obviously, you know how to make money. You live in the palace in New York. So that was the challenge, is really, are you acting in the best interest of your community? Are you willing to build something for others, right? And make sure that you do good first before you do well. So, and the connection to the crypto community, to the banking business, or to the voice of IP story, right, that we talked about before, is that when I came up with a similar idea about the fact that the phone companies used to charge us $3, $4 to call overseas, right? They used to charge you 50 cents to call your neighbor. Their cost was nothing, was maybe 10% of that, right? So why were they charging so much money? And I kept asking that question, and I came up with a way to do it almost for free. Now we're using Voice of IP right now in this interview, and we're not paying anything. You're paying for your local internet connection. I'm paying for my local internet connection. And we have full HD video with full HD voice for free. So that concept was completely foreign in the late 80s and 90s. People thought I was smoking something, and I don't smoke. So this is the same thing. It's just a different industry. And the opportunity here is really to, again, transfer all the wealth that the banks are creating for themselves to the people who actually work hard to create the money in the first place.
And I understand it's, I mean, it's obviously sort of taken off and on quite a scale, especially when compared to sort of it's a very incredibly significant player in the crypto lending space. Where have you seen the sort of most of the success on the borrower side, for example? Because I think the earn side, like you mentioned, the yield is it interesting for one type, or where have you seen the most demand on the borrower side?
Yeah, so I know people call Celsius a network lending company, but really we are an interest income company, right? We have 100,000 users. We have 600 million in assets. Our customers, the people who use our network, they don't lend anything. They just receive interest every week. So just like your bank, you don't go to your bank and you say, hey, I'm coming to you because I want you to lend my money. Here's my deposit, go lend my money, right? No, you depositing the money with the bank and you're expecting some interest back, right? So Celsius Network basically says, it doesn't matter if you have $1, $10, or $10 million, you will get exact pro rata of the network's earnings, right? So every week you're gonna get an income that corresponds to the percentage of the whole pool that you represent, right? So we really, the world does not need another lending company. What the world needs is a replacement for the bank, a place to put your asset that will pay you real yield, real income against what you've earned. So for most of our users, they're not thinking of us as a lending company. They're thinking of us as an interest income company. And we pay, for example, on stable coins, which is like fiat or US dollars or British pounds or Australian dollars, we pay 9, 10, even 11% interest, right? So sometimes it's 100 times more than the local bank pays, right? So how is it possible that this little company that is a startup can pay 100 times more than your bank? Something must be wrong. Either this company is lying and cheating and stealing and really not earning this money, or your bank is egregiously stealing from you. Which one is right? Which one do you think is right? So that is really the question in the air. The banks have, when I came to the United States back in the late 80s, I remember depositing money right here, a few blocks from here in Manhattan at Citibank and earning 7% per year on my money, not having to do anything. So I could make money, put it in a bank and earn 7%. My money was making money. Today, in most cases, it's zero or it's close to zero, right? So we are being robbed, we the people are being robbed by our governments, by our central banks, because for them to prop up the economies and the big companies and the big institutions that borrowed all that money, lending and borrowing, they're the ones who borrowed all that money and got us into this mess. To prop them up, they have to lower rates to zero. So we're basically stealing from the people to keep this charade of GDP and growth and avoiding a recession going. So everything about Celsius is the opposite of that. And my decision, I tried retirement, I was very unhappy, and I decided to do something about the problem. And to solve it, you can either go into politics and scream at the other politicians and try to convince them that we have to change the whole system, which probably is not going to happen. Or you can volunteer in nonprofits and things like that. You're not going to convince any bank or any financial institution to change their ways. It's just not going to happen. So you have to create a new system. And what we've done is really, and I tweeted about this just a few days ago, I said, if you don't like the game, you have to invent a new one, right? So we are creating a whole new system, which I call the fourth system, right? So if you think about communism, socialism, capitalism, it's a fourth system. And it's driven by decentralization. It's driven by the fact that for the first time ever, we have this new technology that allows us to achieve all these goals in a decentralized way without actually requiring a centralized institution like a bank or an investment company or a government to run this for us. So, and for young people that are watching this, if there was like one thing you had to choose to bet your future on, decentralization, working on decentralization is the future, right? So I was lucky to be there at the beginning of the internet. I thank God every day that I get a second chance at working on another revolution. It's just that the internet fixed how we talk to each other. It fixed how we send messages to each other, how we book hotel and travel. This is about all the money in the world. So obviously this decentralization, blockchain revolution is much, much bigger than the internet revolution itself.
So I understand. So one of your sort of hashtags for or famous hashtags for Celsius is the unbank yourself. Is why should a person sort of unbank yourself? Because I mean, so I live in Southeast Asia. I know the term, like, you know, the unbanked or the underbanked largely. I understand that, but why would they, let's say, living in Manhattan, New York, a New Yorker need to unbank themselves?
So look, this concept of you don't need banks until now has been a negative thing, that only the poor were poor enough that the banks wouldn't even take them as customers, right? Why would a rich bank care about somebody who has $10, right? So obviously that is about 1.5 billion people in the world don't have a bank account, right? So that is a problem that we would like to solve. The United Nations would like to solve. There's a lot of nonprofits are working on that, but that is not how Celsius is going to be successful. Celsius is trying to convert enough middle-class people and some rich people to create enough of a basis, enough of a pool of capital, which then will support 1 billion people who don't have a bank account to join and put their $1, and it would still, they can earn what they need to earn without the system collapsing by supporting them. So today I can say we're not focused on that 1.5 billion people. We have many of them, but we're not focused on them, because for us to create a self-sustaining, fast-growing organization, we have to solve the problem for the middle class. And the problem is income. The problem is, are you working for the money, or is the money working for you? And when we talk about unbanking yourself, we're talking about the fact that most people don't know or don't understand that they do not need a centralized middleman to create value with their capital. And they definitely don't understand that the banks and the financial institution do not act in their best interest, right? Almost never act in their best interest. Just to give you a small example, right? So and by the way, I have, me and my wife do these skits on the Celsius Network YouTube channel that can explain these things in really simple terms of what banks do. My wife plays the banks, I play Celsius. But you know, the point is that for most people, it's a difficult concept. It's something like, what are you talking about? My parents, my grandparents, everybody use banks. That's the only way. There's no other way, right? And that's where people really don't understand either how the banking system works, how the financial system works, and in some extent how society works. So like I said, the capitalist system, I'm a big success story of the capitalist system, right? I elevated to the 1% from coming with nothing. I'm the American dream. But this capitalist system does not work for 99% of Americans. So if the system does not work for 99% of the population, is it really a good system, right? So what we're saying is that the fourth system, right, the decentralized system, is acting in your best interest, is paying you based on your contribution to society, not based on how much capital you can either accumulate or create, right? Because today our celebrities, the people who we admire, are the people who are earning the most money. It doesn't matter if they're hurting the planet, if they are, you know, hurting other people. That doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is, do they have a yacht? Do they have a big house? Do they travel and show us how they do fancy stuff and spend a lot of money? Those are the things that we admire and respect and say, wow, I want to be just like that person. And with decentralization, the focus is on, are we including everybody in society? Are we treating everybody fairly? Are we acting in everybody's best interest? And that's really what I'm focused on, right? Is taking the best things out of socialism, communism, capitalism, and creating a decentralized system that basically collects all these things into something that does the best for all of us, not just for the few of us.
Got it. And so you mentioned like decentralization being the driving force, or the sort of the most important sort of aspect. Now, where do you see where do you see decentralization? Where in the world do you see it being the sort of the biggest, or sort of like a noticeable driving force today?
So look, there are clusters of developers and community members and all over the world. Like I don't know any country that does not have it. The needs are different, right? So, for example, right now, Turkey and Argentina and other countries, Venezuela, right, have tremendous need for this type of service because the system that most people live in is collapsing, right? And people have hard time not just getting access to their money, but also to basic services and basic needs like food and shelter and things like that. So you know, in Venezuela, for example, there's several decentralized currencies like Dash and XRP, Ripple, and others that are being used, including Cell Token, the Celsius token, that are being used for people to both store value and transact, right? Because if you're holding the local currency, within a few days, it's worth nothing, right? Because of inflation. Yeah. So these are the type of things that are coming from just the need. But in the United States, we are competing with banks. We're competing with credit card companies. We're competing with financial institutions that because it's such a rich country, for most people, they don't even notice that, you know, there's 2 or 3% inflation and that their money is not earning anything. Most people accept that as a given, right? But they shouldn't. They should not accept that as a given because you worked really hard for your money. And if you don't take care of it, if you don't make it grow, then you're going to have to work forever for the rest of your life, right? And these are the things that, so we have all these things that we created to remind people that they need to HODL, right? And if you don't know what HODL stands for, I'm not going to tell you. Go online and do search and see what HODLing is all about. But that is a concept that's kind of gone away from this planet, is the idea that you need to save, that you need to learn how to make money on your money, that you need to care for all that stuff. And it's important that young people understand that because, again, they don't teach you that in school. They don't teach you that in university. And because if everybody figured out how to make money on money, no one would show up to work, right? So we need all the worker bees to do all the tasks that we need done, right? So let's make sure we don't teach them too much. God forbid.
Got it. And but have you? So does that mean have you unbanked yourself as well then?
Yes. Look, it's not that I don't use banks at all. My point is that I cannot earn yield from a bank. There's no bank in the world that I can go deposit my capital and earn a reasonable yield. Yields in Japan, in Europe are negative, right? Most Asia is negative. Yields in the United States are close to zero. So, and again, it's not because the banks don't earn money. JP Morgan in the last quarter reported all-time record, and they've existed for over 100 years, an all-time record earnings. So if they made $36 billion in profits, just profit, this is not revenues, right? Profit, after all expenses, everything, they were left with a pile of cash. You can fill up this entire room with $100 million bills, and it was $100 bills, and it will still not be $30 billion, right? So they made so much money from all of us. They made it by not paying us anything for our money. They didn't make it because they're such geniuses. They make it because they took away from you, right? So that is what's broken in our system, and most people just take it for granted. I don't know anyone who goes to their bank and demands to know what they do with their money, how much they earn, who they're lending to, how much they get back, and how much of it I'm going to get as a depositor, right? Those would be crazy questions.
I mean, there are some people, and these people, unfortunately, they get essentially laughed at, right, for sort of, acting like loonies,
Exactly. The bank shuts down their bank account because they don't want them there. Go ask somebody else all these questions. But what Celsius does is Celsius shows you through the blockchain. The blockchain is a fully transparent platform. So anyone, even if you're not a user of Celsius, you can see what Celsius is doing. How much did we have in deposit? How much did we lend out? How much did we earn? Did we actually give back 80%? Are we distributing it evenly? Who gets to benefit from it? How much does Alex keep for himself? You know, and things like that. So these are completely new concepts that just do not exist in our existing financial system. So I think, again, it's a leap. It's not a little step forward. It's a leap. You have to, there's a lot of trust involved, right? Again, with voice over IP, if you chose the wrong voice over IP company, okay, fine. I'm not going to use Skype anymore. I'm going to switch to WhatsApp. Or I don't like WhatsApp. I'm going to switch to Zoom, which is what we're using today. But with money, when you want to move to money over IP, right? From the bank to money over IP, that is a much bigger decision, because if something goes wrong, you lost your money. And part of the problem we're having with the blockchain, with decentralization, is that there's just too many scams and too many bad projects that really are not here to help you. They're not here to solve any problem. They're just taking advantage of the hype and of the excitement. And they're not trying to build a community or help change the world to the better, right? So you do need, you, meaning all the people who are watching this, need to do your homework. And you need to make sure that when you're taking those precious dollars that you spend so much time earning, that you are putting them in the safe hands that will act in your best interest.
Definitely. And I think this is, it's kind of, you know, like you mentioned earlier as well, how COVID or this, you know, sort of unprecedented sort of situation that we've in, how it is an opportunity, is that, you know, like you alluded to, is that, you know, we've had a system that just hasn't been working for everyone for a very long period of time, and it's, you know, and it's over time it started working for less and less people, right? And now it's like I think one of the things that this is now, like, you know, highlighted very kind of, unfortunately, very dramatically, is, you know, is how small the number of people that it actually, you know, works for now. And I like, well, I think this is sort of, you know, it's a,
yeah, that's why Adam Smith called it the invisible hand, right? Because it's invisible. Most people cannot see. I'll give you just a tiny little example, right? The U.S. Government reports inflation numbers every month or every quarter, right? They tell you how much inflation there is, and they're celebrating. Oh my God, look, it's only 2%. Inflation is so low. It's going down. It might be zero inflation, right? But you're not measuring the most important inflation, which is the inflation of money. So just in the last month, the Federal Reserve printed more money than it did in 100 years. If you take the last 100 years, you put it all together, that is less money than they printed in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So the inflation of money is tremendous. Your money just got diluted, and this is the United States of America. Venezuela, you just got diluted by 99%, right? So what most people don't understand is that even the stuff that they are being fed is not what matters, right? So the talking points are decided by the people who don't care for you, right? So the Fed mandate of low unemployment and basically stability or growth in GDP are not good for you. They're not helping you, right? Donald Trump is talking about negative interest rates. That's not good for you. That's good for him to get reelected, right? And so on, so on. So because most people don't understand how the invisible hand of the economy, world economy works, they think that some of these things that are being said are good, but they're bad. They're bad for you. They're great for somebody else. They're great for the rich. They're already rich. It's not good for the people who have to wake up tomorrow morning and decide, oh my God, where I'm going to earn my living now because my restaurant closed, or my travel company doesn't exist anymore, or I can't work in the airline company that I used to work in, and so on. And you know, again, as a species on this planet, you know, we are some of the youngest species that ever existed on this planet, right? We're like, you know, the whales even are laughing at us. Like, how long you guys been around? How'd you get to control this planet? So as a species on this planet, this idea that 1% has half of, the top 100 people in the world is half of all the wealth on the planet. I mean, that is just lunacy, right? So we just, it's just hard for me to comprehend how dying with the most money, with the most magical numbers on the spreadsheet is the most important thing for most people. We can do
Very
better.
well put.
We can do better.
I agree, and I think we have to do better. And these sorts of events, I think, are the sort of that are the unfortunately the necessary trigger points, which sort of hopefully push the snowball that the Occupy Wall Street was unfortunately a decade too early, but let's see this time, right?
Well,
I know we don't have. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Occupy Wall Street was complaining about the problem. They did not present a solution.
Yeah.
Just sitting in a tent across from Wall Street is not a solution. That doesn't solve anybody's problem. So they raised the issue. They made all of us aware that obviously the system doesn't work, but they did not present something that is much more attractive for most people. And look, most of the people you're talking to every day have to decide, what is my career? What am I going to spend the rest of my life on, at least the next few years, right? And I want them to focus on that. Focus on, am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? Am I going to go and get great education and go up the corporate ladder and propagate more and more concentration or centralization? Or am I going to be part of the solution? Am I going to work either on the technical side or on the community side of propagating decentralization, right? And creating systems that act in our best interest, not relying on the government, not relying on central banks, not relying on these institutions, creating something from the core that is always acting in our best interest, and then just convincing society to choose. Well, what are you going to choose? Are you going to choose in these guys that steal from you every day, pretend that they're acting in your best interest? And you can put almost everybody there, the politicians, the big company guys, everybody that was in the protesting on Wall Street, right? But here we're presenting a solution that is already working. Again, 100,000 people are using it. 100,000 people are earning money on their money every week, no matter what government or what institution or what, no one can stop them. That's the beauty of this, that it's a completely new system, just like no one could stop the internet. Do you think the phone companies loved what I was doing with voice over IP? I was the most hated guy in telecom, because I took the power.
By the way, I come from Estonia.
Yes. So, yeah, you guys, didn't you do Skype in Estonia or something? Or?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
That was 10 years later.
Yes.
Right. So I created the VoIP in '94. I think Skype was created in 2003. So that was almost a decade later. But the point is that no matter what phone company you were talking to, they looked at this internet thing and said, it's a toy. Which company is going to use the internet for their important mission critical communications? Well, guess what? All of us, the entire planet is using it during COVID. So this is the same thing. MoIP is just like VoIP. And that's why it's so crystal clear for me, because I already seen this movie. I know how it ends. And on the other side of it is the opportunity for all of us to be the best we can be, right? And that's really what I'm striving for.
That's very well put, and I know we don't have too much time left. And although this entire conversation has been very, I think, inspirational. But if you had to say to the thousands of students watching that are considering or looking at a job or at a career in blockchain and decentralization, so whether it's the sort of CS, the lawyers, or business school, what would your sort of advice be to them?
Look, I recently did a lecture here at Columbia University, a few blocks up, about exactly these topics. And I said to everybody there, you should quit your job, because they were mostly MBA students, right? And their work was paying for their degree. So they were like, I was like, you probably have the wrong job decision. So, but for most people, it's very hard to take that risk. It's very hard to think, I can't just go and swim into the middle of the ocean and not drown. I'm going to drown for sure. That's the feeling that most people have in detaching from the centralized world, right? And especially after COVID, most of the stuff that exists in that centralized world is irrelevant. Most of these companies are not going to make the profit or the service that they needed, that they created, is not going to be as much as needed as it used to be. And whole new industries will exist that have never existed before. So do you want to jump off the Titanic now, or you want to wait until it's like halfway already down the ocean, right? So that's all we're doing, is rearranging the chairs on the Titanic, right? I mean, our economic infrastructure is not sustainable. We're spending more than we're creating. And because of that, unfortunately, we are doomed. We are creating more and more debt. We are borrowing from the future. Our government, our central banks are reaching back to the future, reaching out to the future, grabbing money that is not theirs, our children's money, our grandchildren's money, and spending it today to prop up the airlines and all kind of other companies that should not exist anymore, right? And it's fine if they go bankrupt. It's fine if they go through a restructuring, because they will come out better out of it, right? Just like no restaurant can run at 50% occupancy, no airline can run at 50% occupancy. So the whole idea, the whole business structure is wrong and needs to be restructured. And we're not going to do it by throwing good money after bad money. So my point, my long story here with 10 different analogies, is to convince the viewers is that now is the best time to jump off the Titanic. And now, yes, you're better off trying to swim in the middle of the ocean, away from the Titanic, than staying on the boat and hoping that, no, it's just not going to drown. It's going to be, look how big it is. And it worked until now. It went back and forth between England and the United States 50 times or whatever. No, not the Titanic, but the other ships that were built before the Titanic, right? But my analogy basically says, if you're young, the most important thing you have is not your knowledge or your money, is the time you have. You have 50, 60, 70 years of being productive individual in the society. That is the most important thing you have. And the question is, how are you going to spend that? How are you going to spend that time? Are you going to spend it on being the best you can be, exploring who you are? Or you're going to basically get on some, preconceived process where, like, again, most universities, most higher education places, it's like a production line. Poof, they produced a lawyer. Here, they produced an accountant. Here, they produced an engineer, right? And then they put you in the production line in this or that company. So it can't be that I'm the only guy in the world that feels that way, right? So with COVID, the opportunity is to really think hard what the world needs going forward and be the innovator that creates that new future, right? Now is the opportunity. The future is here. You just have to decide that you want to adopt it.
Thank you. That's I think it's very, very well put, especially from someone who's proven that it is possible so well, such as yourself.
Jump in the water. It's not that cold, I promise.
Thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation. I'm sure everyone has a lot to learn from this and finds this very inspirational. So once again, we have Alex Mashinsky from Celsius Network. Thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate it.
I hope I steered some neurons in young people's minds. So hopefully they'll make the right decision.
I'm sure.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Clap. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. And so we'll let you know in the coming days just when exactly this gets slotted in, and we'll just follow up with you on that one.
And send me a link. I'll publish it on our site as well and push it to our social media as well.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And thanks again for the time.
Take
and
care.
Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Stay tuned to learn more about the state of blockchain education at major universities all around the world. Reimagine 2020.